So, you know, do you need some? Ooh, I like that. A little teary-eyed one, dude. Yikes. Hello, welcome. We've got something different this week. Got him! So this is obviously not a truck or a pre-runner or an off-road vehicle. This is a 66 Lincoln Continental. This is Kevin. Kevin is with the Community Hot Rod Project.
How's it going?
This is for a client. Kevin's based out of Santa Barbara. This is where this thing comes from. This is a different, unique vehicle, like everything else. LSA powered is the first thing. Obviously people might cringe on that a little bit. It is what it is, but it's LSA with a 6L80. Resto Mod Air. Right now it's your classic 4-door. It's a convertible. It's a suicide thing. Obviously I'm a sucker for that, like a lot of people are.
Exactly.
So I think we're gonna kind of do this thing in phases. If you want to talk about the car itself or just what condition you got it in.
Sure.
Maybe we start there, and then what we'll do is we'll get into the work that it's here for. And this is just another project coming in that we wanted to kind of tell the story on and follow the process as far as our work on it and maybe check in on it later down the road as well. So send it.
Cool. So originally I got a call from our client that just recently purchased this car. It was all original, had been restored at one point in its life. He bought it down in San Diego, went to have his wonderful drive home back to Vegas, and it blew a head gasket. So not knowing much about cars, he SOS'd me, and I came out from Santa Barbara, checked out the car, saw that the motor was just toast, and ran over some different options with him, and he's like, let's go crazy. So I'm like, all right. He gave us a blank slate to do whatever with and get creative with it. He had some pretty fun ideas to do with the build and let us loose. So went and ordered the LSA, and it ended up being the second to last one in the United States before they turned the program over to Australia, because it's going to be in all the Holdren Utes and stuff over there.
Yeah,
so
yep.
It was the perfect power plant choice that we wanted to give enough reliable, fun power and do something different than your basic LS3 or LS7 in these builds, which
Sure.
a lot of people are doing, same as doing a Coyote or Godzilla swap. So,
Except it's a GM.
yeah, so we're breaking some people's hearts by getting rid of the original Ford powertrain in this thing and going with something a little bit more reliable in our book.
Yeah.
But yeah, having some fun with it. So we're bringing it down here to Morgan so you can help us with some of the sheet metal fabrication to clean it up a little bit, do some retrofitting, and helping us out with our project, because our nonprofit isn't fully set up yet to do that type of stuff. So reached out to our good friends and helping each other out and having some fun with it.
Absolutely. So right off the bat, like when I saw this thing, you just got, if your panties are in a bunch that there's a LSA motor in this thing, I'm sorry, so be it. But moving past that, functionally, the motor sits a little higher. It's not a huge like engine bay height in here. The oil pan and everything, there's like extensive modifications that would need to be made to the cross member, the lower arm cross member, for this thing to sit lower than the actual hood. That being said, this is what we're going to work with. Now, that's not the end of the world, and it doesn't mean just cut a hole in the hood and have the blower stick through. That's a solution, but I don't think that that's the most optimal solution. So, like, we're going to cover some of the the meat and potatoes of the sheet metal, and then talk about solutions for that, because that's where like my wheels are turning as far as like the overall on this thing. It's not going to be like this, you know, coil over gnarly thing. It's not going to be bagged. It's going to just have a proper ride height with like a 20-inch retro wheel, like a billet retro wheel. So it'll retain the same vibe. And I think we don't want to like bank. That's where the design sense of this, I'm just like brainstorming. This is my first time meeting with Kevin about it. It's what's stashed over here. It's waiting to go into the studio. There's a lot where it's like you don't want to shit the bed on over designing something, or you know, just doing your general like style like this. If I was to do the back of a truck and style it like that, you know, with like dynamic shapes and lines and brakes, there's got to be like, you have to tread lightly here with making this thing work appropriately with what it's supposed to be in the end. It's a challenge, and it's a great one. It's not, challenges don't have to be bad. When you think challenge, you always think it's like a bad thing. It's not. It's just it's something you find a solution to, and it can be very fun doing it. So one of the things originally that Kevin and I talked about was running the Resto Mod air unit in here. And what's going on is the factory instrument panel and the dash doesn't allow that box to really fit in there cleanly. So instead of, usually like what we'd do with something like this is, you know, we'd have to make room for in the firewall, where we'd cut the firewall out to actually fit the trans, like we'd pull it back.
Yep.
And in this case, the engine, you can kind of see where the end of this thing is and where the trans will mate, and there's plenty of room. So really what we're gonna do is make a cavity going forward to house the Resto Mod in there, flush, where we're not modifying the instrument panel. And then the other situation here, when I look at this, is like, how do we clean up the, you know, like do something in the engine bay where it's clean. And like I've kind of assessed this, obviously there's a lot of like factory holes and stuff. And when you look in here, it's a unibody, it's not like a frame rail car. So cutting a lot of this out might be a lot more haphazard and, you know, very labor intensive than just putting like a really clean skin in here that kind of houses this thing. It doesn't have a huge header system. It just has the factory exhaust manifolds, which are nice flowy units. They don't look like some cast clunky shit. So that's kind of the challenges here. We're gonna go through the process with digital design, taking pictures of this exact space. We're gonna talk about the interior and at least identify those two things and build out these two areas, right?
Yes.
Right off the bat. The hood is another thing. I mean, obviously it's kind of a stretched rectangle. This thing, you said, goes about 2.5 inches over above sea level?
2.25 inches
Okay.
proud right now.
Yeah. So that's not terrible. What I'm thinking right when I like look at this car is I see this shape. And if we talked about doing like a shaker hood, and essentially like that's, if this thing opened, you'd it opens this way anyways, and it would open up and have like a, you know, a portion missing. And then we just build like a clean, like a sheet metal cover here that almost has this kind of same shape and vibe, and then maybe tapers all the way back, you know, so the hood doesn't have a hole in it. It has more of just a cutout. Like it doesn't have a fourth side. It's kind of just floating there, and then that trim piece can kind of just float back there.
Sure.
Where it's not going to be like super aggressive. Like, sick, like you got this big thing, and then it's like this factory, like long drawn out cruiser. And I think that's like the most tasteful way to do that. Leave, you know, this stuff can still be exposed, or we cover it. I mean, that's stuff we do need to like talk about. I think when people like hot rod these things, and obviously like I don't have a huge expertise in building hot rods, but I have an expertise in design and manipulating metal. So I don't know if a trim piece is necessarily the thing, or if we like actually just bank on putting two pieces in here and still kind of, you know, have the accessories exposed and used like visually. When we talk about this area, is there stuff in particular you're thinking like I mean, there's obviously a radiator that needs to go in here. There's accessories.
Yes.
So maybe we just identify the firewall stuff first, right? Like we talked about, and then go out from there.
Sure.
The brake booster stays,
Yes.
right? And then do you have more stuff that's gonna go in here?
It's a pretty clean engine bay setup from factory.
Yeah.
Other than, we have a brand new aluminum radiator that goes in. We could probably do a new cover that would tie into everything else. That would help to streamline it and give it its complete look. The rest of the stuff, I think, is pretty much
Okay.
where it's going to be. There's not too many, because we are doing all new electrical and changed all the different factory things on this, that we don't need to put all those gadgets back in here.
Sure.
So it'll be a nice clean look in here that we can pretty much be streamlined.
Yeah, and I think again, it's going to be a broken record with this thing. It's just not overdoing it.
Yep.
It's sometimes building cleaner things is harder than building something extreme.
Exactly.
Or putting detail. Like if you overwork stuff and you put too much detail into, one thing after another thing after another thing, and then you look back and it's like a puzzle piece. Like it's just like, what did you do? Like it's very nice, but it's so detailed that you lost the smoothness and the timeless design of it.
Sure.
So again, we'll get digital design stuff going for this. I don't think the firewall has to have like crazy design if we just have like something that wraps around and then kind of captures the vertical surface of the firewall and brings it back around so it's just clean. And then we can kind of just meat and potato the actual sheet metal that seals it.
Yep.
If we want to talk about the inside too, so Kevin's what he wants to do with this thing is put buckets in it, essentially get rid of the bench seats, which there's a lot of design direction here that you could go a lot of different ways. I like the bench seat thing, what I was talking to Kevin about. So he's going to delete all the door, like the three-dimensional part of the doors, right? So they'd almost be like a door card. Put all the controls on the touchpad, the digital touchpad. And that's part of what this car will have. It'll have the same like gauge cluster and instrumentation area, but it's going to have digital screen. And then the center will have a custom digital screen that'll have like all the controls, windows, trunk, top, right?
Yeah, but it'll start the car, all your heat controls, interior, exterior cameras, power, 6-way power seats, touch screens, all controls on there as well.
Yep.
So it's all going to be very clean, basic lines and design is what we're going for.
Perfect.
But don't want to keep the stock-ish looking appearance. So a nice resto mod, but a little different. So you're gonna have to take a double take to see that we've actually modified it.
Sure. And again, like making stuff where it doesn't look like it's out of place. I think that's a huge thing. That's where I'm just going off, like my alarm is like, be careful. Do this right, where it's not. And I love it. It's just do it right where it's not going to be something where it's like, whoa, gosh, you had this whole thing and then you put that there, and it just doesn't work.
Nope.
You can do that, but then you got to do the whole car like that.
Yeah.
And then it only is that much of a car.
Sure.
And that stuff almost has a shelf life, in my opinion. I think that if you do stuff right the first time and you make it kind of timeless and not as extreme, then it has a longer impact.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to ruin the original styling and the essence of this car, which makes these cars so popular.
Yep.
And that's the big thing that we want to help capture with this build.
Sure. So something you mentioned too, Kevin, is you want to kind of keep these seats and possibly just split them, do away with the center portion. And I think that like design-wise, starting if you wanted to do a console all the way from like the top of this, I think that that's going to do something where then you're going to end up treating this and it's not going to tie in. So I think splitting those, and then instead of going all the way up, retaining this crossover piece, and starting the console where it like, oh, that thing's kind of cool. It can, you know, your hard part can come out.
Sure.
And it can kind of be, then it integrates everything into one.
No.
Where it's not like, you know, then you have that nice tie-in, and then everything can kind of settle, all the factory stuff can settle in with the design.
No, that's really great. It's what we want to do, and then it'll be able to function and do some of the custom stuff that the client is looking for, with having the seats lay flat and turn into like a bed.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's
kind of spooky. You get Las Vegas, you get interior cameras, and the seats that fold into a bed.
Yeah.
You know,
have some fun.
sounds like a good night out on the town.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is just the intro to this thing. I think we'll kind of get you guys on track with following it, and then you know, follow up with digital design. So I think that's the next step. Is just I need to take pictures and start drawing over this thing.
Sure.
But I think that's the plan for sure for the firewall, is just get the dash in there and then get the resto mod box clearance to where it needs to be, kind of build around that, and then just finish that out with trim.
Sure.
So the firewall doesn't actually have to be the focal point. It can just be the trim.
Exactly.
And then it's just all that dirty work under there can be done, and then just cover it up, put a nice fascia on the thing.
Sure.
Well, Kevin, thank you for bringing the car. Something different. I always people are always like, you should get into hot rods, you should get into doing like street cars and blah, blah. And I think it's just a lot of the business and my work is always like, if you build it, they will come. Getting the right opportunity with the right client to do something is always like the entryway into more of it.
Sure.
And I do have a thing for hot rods and just custom stuff in general. Doesn't have to be an off-road car. So thank you for the opportunity. We'll follow up. I mean, I think the next time we do this, we'll talk about Community Hot Rod Project as a whole, your future plans with some of the parts on here as a whole, right?
Yes.
And the work that we've done.
Sure.
So we'll probably intro all the digital drawings as well on the next episode, and then have the work done. It's not a huge, intricate project. So I mean, it's going to be a couple weeks, and we're done with this thing.
Yep.
So thank you guys. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you guys for the support.